Verse number 37, David said, the Lord delivered me from the paw of the lion. Go and fight with him. Verse number 38, then Saul clothed David with his garments and put a bronze helmet on him, and he put all of his armor on him. David girded the sword over his army and over his armor and tried to walk. And he said, I cannot go with these because I have not tested them. And David took them off. He took his stick in his hand. He chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in the shepherd's bag, which he had even in his pouch. And his sling was in his hand, and he approached the Philistine. So picture this. He takes the king's armor. The king clothes him from head to toe in the finest armor that you could buy. The king always had the best stuff. He couldn't even move because he was a young teenager and couldn't even move in all of that armor. He took it all off and said, you know what? I can't use this stuff. I can't use that. I'm just going to trust in God, and I'm going to do what God has taught me to do. Verse number 41, then the Philistine came and approached David with his shield bearer in front of him. His shield was so big that he made someone else carry it out to the battlefield so that he didn't get tired carrying this monster shield. That's how big it was. Now, I want you to also think about this just for a minute, because here we have the champion of the Philistines, the toughest guy in the whole country. This would be the heavyweight wrestling champion of their country. And he is back in his tent eating a great big giant turkey leg. And they said, hey, Goliath, come on out here. The Israelites are sending out a warrior. Somebody is finally ready to challenge you. Oh man, he's excited, right? He throws down the turkey leg, grabs his helmet, puts on his breastplate, grabs his sword, and he runs out of that tent. He is ready to finally fight after several days of challenging Israel. This is what he is born to do. This is what he is bred to do. He can't wait to get into the battle. He looks across and he sees David. No armor, no sword, no spear. Verse number 42, when the Philistine looked and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy with a handsome appearance. You know what that means? That really means that he was cute. He was a cute little guy. He was a cute little teenage boy who had come out to fight the champion of champions. Verse number 43, the Philistine said to David, am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. He was mad that they sent out some punk little cute kid with a staff in his hand. He comes out with a stick in his hand. Goliath is furious that this is the only person that is going to face him out of the entire army of Israel. Watch this. Verse number 44, the Philistine also said to David, come to me, and I will give your flesh to the birds of the sky and to the beasts of the field. Then David said, watch the response that David has. Verse number 45. David said to the Philistine, you come to me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have taunted. This day the Lord will deliver you up into my hands, and I will strike you down and remove your head from you, and will give the dead bodies of the army of the Philistines this day to the birds of the sky and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. Whew, that's a pretty powerful statement. Verse number 47. And that all this assembly may know that the Lord does not deliver by sword or by spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. Verse number 48, then it happened when the Philistine rose and came and he drew near to meet David, that David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet the Philistine. This little David is amazing. The courage that he has in his heart. He says, if it's battle time, then I'm going to run to the battle. He runs to face Goliath, the 9-foot tall champion. Verse number 49, David put his hand into his bag and he took from it a stone and he slung it and he struck the Philistine on his forehead, and the stone sank into his forehead so that he fell on his face to the ground, probably with a huge thud. Verse number 50, thus David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and he struck the Philistine and killed him, but there was no sword in David's hand. Let me give you these 7 principles that I believe are all represented in this story that we read about David and Goliath. The epic battle, 7 principles to victory. Number 1, the first thing that we realize is that conquering faith remembers. Conquering faith remembers. David went back and remembered that he has already defeated the lion. He's already defeated the bear, a wild bear and a wild lion. He says, this guy will be no different. If God can deliver me from that, then God can deliver me from this. I just want to let you know, saints of God, that God will deliver you from the trials and the tribulations that you're going through right now. Sometimes we need to stir ourselves up in our faith. One of the best ways to stir ourselves up is to remember all of the things that God has already delivered you from, all of the victories that you've already gained in Christ. Second thing we see is that we re-examine and reaffirm the purpose for going into battle. David did not fight Goliath that day so that he could be famous. He did not fight Goliath that day. He said, you are defying the armies of Israel. He said, you have taunted the armies of Israel. Don't you know that we serve Jehovah? Don't you know that there is a God that we serve in Israel and that he will deliver you into our hands? He was mad that Goliath was challenging God. That's why he went into the battle, because he had the audacity to challenge God's army. Third principle to victory is that you have to learn to reject discouraging words of others. The first thing the king said to David was, you cannot fight this man. You cannot win. You cannot beat this man. I'm talking about the king. This is the king telling him that you need to go home now because you cannot fight this man and you cannot win. That did not change David's mind. It did not change David's attitude. You know, some of the people that can discourage us the most are the people that live under our own roof. You know what? Sometimes it's our family members that work on us. They have a way to get past our armor and to get into our heart and to discourage us more than anyone else on the planet. So be careful when you're speaking to the members of your own family. Be careful when you're speaking to your children. Don't be a discouragement to your children, and don't be a discouragement to your family. But David was strong and steadfast in his faith and would not let the words of the king discourage him. The next principle of faith, principle number 4, is we need to recognize the true nature of the battle. See, David was able to recognize that this was a spiritual battle. This was not a physical battle where he was going to go out and try to put Goliath in a headlock. He recognized quickly that this is a spiritual battle, that he had already been given a promise to God that he would be king of Israel. If he was going to be king of Israel, then he couldn't die that day on the battlefield. Do you believe the promises of all